Hey guys, welcome to a full class on the forward roll. I'm really excited to share this skill with you because it's such an important foundational skill within gymnastics, because you can think of it as like the base for so many other higher level skills that gymnasts do. So we're going to go over a couple things regarding the forward roll today. An overview of what our topics look like are these 5 lovely points, okay? So first, we're gonna start by talking about why in the world do you want to learn the forward roll? We've got 3 reasons there. Then we're gonna move into the mechanics of how to roll properly, safely, correctly, so that you have the most success possible, and really break it down step by step. Then we are gonna move into a topic with some lovely, lovely drawings by yours truly, and discuss gravity and the role of weight distribution and being able to roll successfully. Then we'll move on to the fun stuff. So progressions from beginner to advanced drills that you can use at home or at a gym if you have mats available. Last but certainly not least, we're going to discuss some important takeaways that are really going to impact how well you practice moving forward in the future. So this is a really important video. You definitely don't want to skip. The way you'll move through this class is just making sure you watch every single part that we talk about so that you get all the information available for the forward roll. I want you to take a few minutes, hours, days, whatever you need to digest all the information. Make sure you fully understand it, and then I would recommend you being free to actually go into your living room, outside, or to the gym to actually put everything we talked about into practice. Because gymnastics is definitely a sport that's like 85%, 90% mental. We have to make sure that our brain fully understands these skills and these movements so that we can translate and communicate those principles and those ways of moving to our body so that our body follows along and does what our brain is asking us to do, okay? So we've got to make sure your focus is turned all the way up. You're thinking about all our information, all of these drills, because that's how you're gonna have the most success possible. Now let's go ahead and get started. Topic number 1 in our forward roll class, we're gonna discuss why in the world you want to and you should learn how to forward roll safely in gymnastics. So reason number 1 is because a forward roll is a foundational skill. So I hinted to this just a few seconds ago in the class introduction. The forward roll is one of those very fundamental skills that gymnasts learn from a very early age. Think like mommy and me classes. That's when we have young gymnasts start learning how to forward roll, because it teaches you so many of those necessary motor skills and characteristics you need to be successful at gymnastics. So like spatial awareness, how to control your body and your limbs as you move in different ways. It's going to teach you about balance and rotation and just so many great benefits that are going to help transfer into your abilities as a gymnast, but an athlete overall. Plus, the forward roll is, like I said, a foundational skill, which means it's a building block. Think about Legos. You always want to lay your first line of Legos, first layer of Legos when you're building a house, really solid and secure, right? So our first line, our base of Legos, one of those blocks is going to be the forward roll, because from the forward roll, we get so many higher level skills that you see gymnasts doing within gymnastics. We can turn the forward roll into a handstand forward roll. We can turn it into a front flip, a back flip, any kind of flipping in the air that you're gonna do off balance beam, uneven bars, on the floor. Okay, so it's a really important foundational skill that's going to turn into so many other higher level skills. And that brings us to our second reason as to why you want to learn the forward roll, especially if you're an artistic gymnast, because the forward roll will also help you learn the position that you need for flips, like the front flip. Okay, So you saw in the front flip, as I left the ground, I held my body in this tight, rounded tuck position, right? So it's the same position I do in a forward roll, okay? So being able to teach gymnasts the forward roll from a young age, or if you're a little bit older, as long as it's in the beginning of your gymnastics journey, your gymnastics career, it's going to set you up for so much more success because you are teaching your body the most basic principles, most basic skills, movements possible in this sport so that we can build off of them. Last but not least, you definitely want to learn the forward roll for safety reasons. Being able to bail or fall safely out of skills that maybe haven't gone so well. So if you're a new gymnast and you're learning the handstand hold, for example, okay? You kick upside down, but let's say you accidentally kick too powerfully, right? You go past vertical. What are you going to do? Uh-oh, ooh. Hopefully you know how to safely tuck and roll out of that failed, too powerful handstand position. If you haven't taught yourself how to forward roll or how to bail safely, you're probably going to kick up to a handstand, too much power, and then whoop, just freeze up and fall smack flat on your back. Nobody wants to do that because it doesn't feel good. 0 out of 10 recommend, okay? So forward rolling is going to help you learn how to fall safely out of those kind of botched, weird skills that everybody has, everybody goes through, nobody's perfect, okay? And so that is the third and final reason for today as to why learning this forward roll is so important. The second topic we're going to get into today for our forward roll class is the mechanics behind the actual movement pattern. So we're going to break it down step by step, talking about how you should be forward rolling correctly so that you stay safe and can have the most fluid, successful roll possible, okay? So let me show you real quick what a forward roll looks like. Here we go. All right, so there's a forward roll. If you've watched any kind of gymnastics, you've probably seen it before. But now let's break it down step by step so you actually know what's happening. And keep in mind that as we're going through this section of the class, breaking it down into these really in-depth pieces, steps, is for those athletes who are brand new to rolling, brand new to gymnastics, or who just don't quite have an understanding of what should be happening to roll correctly, okay? So it's gonna seem like this roll is really slow and really segmented, but in reality, what we're doing is just making sure you fully understand all the mechanics, all the moving parts that go into rolling safely so that we can then learn it, understand it, and then eventually pick the speed back up, add some power in there, and turn the forward roll into a big, fun gymnastics skill, okay? So first thing we're gonna do is start with our feet hip width apart. This is because especially as you're learning, you wanna make sure that if you go a little bit too powerful, you have too much rotation, you're always keeping yourself safe. So if you roll really fast the first time accidentally and you've got some space between your legs, guess what? You've created a safe space for your face as you go to sit up, okay? If athletes start out learning how to roll with their legs together, yes, you would think that it's really good form to practice, but we'll get into the form later. I don't want a new athlete keeping their legs together because if it's too powerful of a roll while they're learning, I definitely don't want that face or your nose to go right into your knees, okay? So feet apart, create space for your face. All right, here we go. Now, second step, we're gonna squat down to the ground. Hands are gonna come out in front of us. I'm gonna lift my hips and my booty up in the air here, and then I'm gonna walk my feet in as close to my hands as possible, okay? This position, this step right here is so important, but we're gonna get more in depth with it in the next section of the class when we talk about gravity and weight distribution. So just remember, keep in mind that this position is super important, okay? But bear with me for a few minutes. So after I've walked my feet in as close to my hands as possible, I'm gonna tuck my chin and stare at my belly button. Okay, this is going to start to round the shoulders, round the upper back, so that as I do begin to roll, it's a nice, fluid, smooth melt into the floor versus having a straight spine. My head is neutral, and that just puts my head and my neck at risk for injury, right? We want to get into a really tight, tucked position. Think of how an armadillo rolls, okay? Be the armadillo. Get into as tight of a ball as possible so that everything stays safe and you roll as fluidly as possible. All right, so I've walked my feet in, I've tucked my chin, and now I'm going to initiate the roll by gradually, strictly bending my elbows here. Boom. Okay, so you want to think of this as like a strict movement. Your arms and your gradual elbow bend are really helping to slow your speed down so that you can control how fast you roll to the floor. Okay, you definitely don't want to leave your elbow straight, because that's going to turn into more of like a tip over, like a handstand, a fall from a handstand, and then all of a sudden, whoop, you're going to fall flat on your back again. Okay, so it's a gradual bend of the elbows. Now, what you also hopefully saw is that the only part of my head that came in contact with the ground was the very back, right? So a common question I get with forward rolls is, how do I do this safely? I feel like I'm going to hurt myself. Well, usually when that's the case, people feel like that because their head and their neck are so exposed and vulnerable because they're in the wrong position. When you tuck your chin in and stare at your belly button like we talked about, it will actually tuck your head into your caved, your rolling position, so that as we go to roll, you're rolling completely over your head, over your neck, so that your head isn't actually touching the floor, okay? We're completing the full roll before the back of your head actually comes in contact, and it's just very, very gently, okay? So let's just focus on that piece right there really quick, and then we'll take another look at the full forward roll. So I'm gonna start halfway through already. You're gonna see how I tuck my chin and my head stays nice and secure in my rolling position. And look at that, boom. Now I can roll super smooth, super easily, super safely, okay? Good. Last but not least, standing up. So as you roll past your head, you're smoothly melting down to the floor. In order to stand, you want to think of pulling your heels into your booty super tight, and then it's a sit up using your core, using your abs, trying to get your shoulders over the front of your toes, because that's going to help us shift your body weight forward over your feet so that you can actually stand. So take a look at my feet in relation to my booty as I roll, and then shift or sit up, getting my shoulders over my toes. And then we stand, okay? On the contrary, if your feet are too far in front of you, you're not able to pull your heels into your booty very close, think about what's going to happen in regards to being able to stand up. You can't do it, right? Because the goal to be able to stand up from a roll is being able to shift your body weight forward over your feet so that you can stand. And if your feet are too far out forward, we can't shift that body weight forward, which means you're always going to fall back down on your booty, okay? So pull the heels into the booty, sit up using the abs and the core, shift those shoulders over the toes, and you're going to find it's pretty simple to be able to stand up from a roll. So let's take a look at the full beginner forward roll, step by step, and then I'll show you what it looks like a little bit faster. Feet hip width apart, squat, hands forward, booty up. Walk the feet in, tuck the chin, stare at the belly button, gradual strict bend of the elbows, heels to booty, and stand. Boom, okay? Now if we add a little bit more power to it, which we'll get into more in depth with our progressions, it's gonna look just a little bit faster, okay? Boom, and it's a lot more fun. So it's worth it to learn how to forward roll correctly from the beginning so that we can add power and momentum and speed back into the equation and make sure you stay safe and be as successful as possible. In part 3 of our forward roll class, we're going to discuss gravity and weight distribution and how those two factors play a huge part in determining how well we can roll. So you get to look at a just beautiful drawing by yours truly of a really good forward roll position and a pretty poor forward roll position. Okay, so we'll get in depth with each of those so you know exactly how to forward roll again, okay? Kind of reliving those mechanics, the step-by-steps we just talked about. And now we're gonna talk about why in the world that step where our hands were near our feet, our booty was up in the air is so important, because gravity is super important. So the goal with talking about gravity and weight distribution is to make sure you understand how they work, how they play a part, so that we can start you in a position that encourages a safe and controlled roll. That's really the whole goal, the umbrella goal of this whole class, just giving you the information and the knowledge so that you know how to roll, but more importantly, why you should be rolling with specific techniques to keep yourself as safe as possible, okay? So first of all, let's take a look at the good forward roll position. So we talked about this again in part 2 of the class when we went over the mechanics of the movement. So as you can see, we're going from right to left here with my drawings, okay? So in this drawing, he has a smiley face, so he's happy. Your hips are over your lever point, okay? So let's talk about that for a second. What the heck is your lever point? Your hands. Your hands are considered your lever point in this forward roll, because the lever point, or your hands, is the point that's in contact with the ground that we are trying to pass. We are trying to roll over, okay? That brings us to kind of our second definition of the day, which is our center of gravity. So our center of gravity is our hips, our booty, and the upper leg. It's because this is the heaviest part on 99% of athletes' bodies, 99% of people's bodies. Center of gravity meaning the most mass, the heaviest mass. And guess what? Physics says that where mass goes, center of gravity goes, the rest of your body will follow. So we need to make sure that at all times we are aware of where our center of gravity is in relation to our lever point, the point on the floor that we're trying to pass, right? Which means we want our center of gravity traveling forward in order to forward roll. So that brings us to our actual position that I told you was super important. It's this step where my feet are hip width apart. I squat down, hips up, and I walk my feet in right here. This is the step that we're talking about that is so important, okay? So what you've just seen happen when I squatted down, I lift my hips up in the air. As you can see, my lever point, the point I'm trying to move past, is way up here. My hands are way up here in relation to my center of gravity, which is way back here, right? Okay, so I need to walk my feet up so that I walk my center of gravity forward, getting it as close to that lever point as possible so that gravity can do what gravity does best and help me tip over. Super simple, super easy, no power involved, right? So the goal with this position is literally to get your hips and your booty, the heaviest part of your body, over your hands as much as possible so that this roll turns into a very simple tip over. Now let's look at its counterpart, okay? Let's look at bad positions that aren't going to allow you to roll as simply or as smoothly. So as you can see from the red drawings here, okay, remember we're going right to left. If you start with your hips backwards, so let's say, pretend I'm not walking my feet in towards my hands. My center of gravity is back here. My lever point is up here, right? That's a big distance that we're trying to move in order to move forward of our lever point. So if we skip the step of moving our center of gravity forward, guess what? You're gonna tuck your head in, trying to roll, bending your elbows, but gravity's not gonna let you go forward because the heaviest part of your body is so far backwards, right? So if your hips, your booty, your center of gravity start too far backwards, gravity will stop you from rolling forward, okay? And that brings us to our second point. A lot of athletes get set up in this position, realize that they can't roll forward simply using gravity to their advantage, which means they want to or feel inclined to jump and to create power to be able to roll forward, okay? Well, with almost all gymnastic skills, you can do them slowly, strictly, which will keep you more safe, which is much better for beginners or those learning these new skills. Because when we involve power and momentum and speed, things become more dangerous for athletes because they're just harder to control. So we're trying to break this skill down, make it as slow, straight, simple as possible. And later on, when you feel confident and comfortable, that's when we'll add the speed, the power, the momentum back in. But if we have an athlete who doesn't understand the concept of center of gravity in relation to their lever point, and they add power, that's just a recipe for disaster. No, it's just not gonna end up well, okay? So you definitely do not wanna skip this step of trying to jump yourself forward, not gonna work. Walk those hands forward, tuck the chin. Slow, strict, smooth, melt into the floor, okay? Be like the green guy, don't be like the red guy. Focus on your hips, your booty, your center of gravity, where it is in relation to your lever point, and you're gonna have so much more success. Now we're to the fun part of our forward roll class because we've got 6 beginner to more advanced progressions that you can practice either at home with what you have available, or if you are lucky enough to be in a beautiful gymnastics gym with all kinds of equipment, awesome, because you're going to be able to pull some pieces and practice these drills. So let's take a look at where we're going here. Again, we're going to start from more beginner to more advanced drills, so that everybody can again start by laying that really strong, solid foundation, understanding how to execute the forward roll correctly and safely, and then we can move on to a little bit harder of a drill, then a little bit harder, and continue challenging ourselves with more and more difficult progressions, okay? But again, you want to start simple so that you teach yourself how to correctly do it. Make sure you're improving those coordination channels between your brain and your body so that we have the most success possible. You never just want to jump into the advanced progression. Even though it looks fun, you're putting yourself at high risk for injury and you're just not setting yourself up for success, because we've got to teach you how to do these drills so we can evolve them, all right? Okay, drill number 1, we're going to do a forward roll using a wedge or any kind of decline. So I'm going to use my cheese mat here, and the reason why, again, we consider the forward roll a foundational skill is because we build off of it. And as we build off the forward roll, we don't change it. We are not trying to take what we just learned in part 1, 2, or 3 of the class and just do something totally different now that we are practicing. We're going to go through the same step-by-step process that we learned how to do on the floor, and we're going to apply it to these drills. So you're building off of all the information you just learned, okay? So feet hip width apart. We're going to squat down, put our hands forward, lift the booty up in the air, walk the feet forward, center of gravity, lever point, which we just learned was so important. Tuck the chin, stare at the belly button, and gradual bend of the elbows. Boom. The reason why using this wedge is the very first progression is because the decline will give you just a little bit extra momentum as compared to being flat on the floor, so that you can get used to what it's like fully rotating over yourself. So this is definitely more for very beginners learning how to just move in that full rotation, move through that full roll. After you feel pretty comfortable on the decline, progression number 2 is rolling with fluffy mats. Okay, so you can see this mat is pretty thick, about 8 inches thick, right? And it's super fluffy. So we're gonna go through the same step-by-step process on this fluffy mat. We're not changing a single thing. And again, the beautiful thing about this is you can practice forward rolling at home. So if you don't have a really sweet 8-inch fluffy gymnastics mat, you can use your mattress, you can use your couch cushions, pillows, you can stack comforters on top of each other, create a soft, comfy surface that allows you to have a little bit more confidence as you're practicing. And if something does go wrong, maybe you forget a step accidentally, you've still got this really soft space that you're gonna be able to stay safe in, okay? We wanna keep you in a safe environment as you're learning. So let's get on our fluffy mat, same steps. Feet hip width apart, hands forward. Walk the feet in, chin into chest, stare at belly button, and bend the elbows. Boom, good. I'm nice and safe, that was fun. My head, my neck feel great, nothing happened. I'm ready to move on to our next progression, which is using a little bit thinner of a mat. So again, you wanna make sure that your jumps between progressions are always very minimal. So I would never have an athlete move from using a very fluffy mat to trying a handstand forward roll off the mat, off the wall. No, you wanna make small jumps when you're using different progressions, okay? So we're going from an 8-inch mat to like a 2-inch mat. But if you wanna go from an 8-inch to a 6-inch to a 4-inch to a 2-inch to a 1-inch, you can take as many steps as you want between these progressions, okay? We're just using a selection of equipment to show you the basis of how you want to progress yourself using these pieces of different equipment, okay? All right, so we've got my thin mat, feet hip width apart, same steps. Squat, hands, center of gravity up, walk it forward, tuck the chin, bend the elbows. Heels to booty and stand. Boom, done. Let's say I practice this so much, I can nail all 3 of these progressions so far in my sleep. They're going great. Now it's time to move the forward roll out onto the floor, okay? So we've got my open space. We're gonna go through the same steps as before, but now we're actually on the floor. We're doing the full forward roll. Squat, hands, hips, center of gravity, lever point, chin, elbows. Heels and stand. Boom, good, awesome. Okay, so now we just progressed using a variety of equipment, going from more beginner to more advanced. And when you feel good with this basic, what I call the beginner, very beginner forward roll, you're like, I've practiced for a few days, maybe a few weeks, maybe even a few months, okay? Don't get caught up on the timeline. We can add power, speed back into the equation to make it a little bit more fun as you get better and better at gymnastics. So when we add more speed and more power to our forward rolls, like our progressions, you don't want to just go like all out right out of the gate. You want to add in 1% of your total power to your roll. Okay, when you can do 1% of your power, you can go to 2% of your power. Okay, then 3%, 4%, 5%, work your way all the way up to a very powerful, full forward roll, okay? You don't want to make big jumps. You want to keep it simple. You want to keep yourself safe and progress yourself properly. Go step by step, percent by percent, as you're adding speed, power, momentum back into the equation. Double checking yourself so that you're hitting every step, you're doing the correct mechanical movement pattern of the roll so you stay safe and you have success. After you feel good with those faster forward rolls, we get to continue evolving them into higher level skills like handstand forward rolls, okay, like front flips, back flips, higher level gymnastics skills, okay, which we're unfortunately not going over today, but we do have other videos that you can watch to help teach you how to do all of those really fun movements that you see in gymnastics. But the idea with these progressions is to give you plenty of variety to understand how to learn the forward roll safely, so that we can continue to help you grow in your understanding of the movement, of your execution of the movement, to build your solid, secure foundation so you stay happy, healthy, safe, and don't just completely hate these gymnastic skills because they're super scary, right? All right, let's take a look. 6 ones, we went wedge, fluffy, thin. Floor, adding speed, evolving into those higher level skills. And last but not least, equipment. So remember, if you if you don't have a gymnastics gym available to use the wedge or the 8-inch mat or the sting mat, again, you can do this at home. Use your mattress, use fluffy, soft, squishy surfaces that you feel confident staying safe using, okay? Remember, always use your brain. Think about, if I do this, what will happen? If I do this, what will happen? If you know you can stay safe practicing it, heck yeah, let's go ahead and give it a try. You made it to part 5 of our forward roll class, and in this section, we're gonna talk about the important takeaways so that you can practice your forward rolls as successfully and safely as possible. So as you can see, we've got a few bullet points we're gonna talk about here. The biggest one is making sure you are moving forward in your training with confidence and committing to follow through with the roll. So especially in newer gymnasts, maybe people who don't have a background in gymnastics, brand new to this sport, brand new to rolling, it's scary. Absolutely it is, okay? I was there once. I was just there like 20 years ago learning this stuff as a little kid. But I remember just being a little bit unsure, like, okay, what the heck do they want me to do? So the reasoning behind having these really in-depth classes is to make sure I provide you with all the information you need so that you know how to correctly and safely perform this movement, because knowledge is power. And again, you want to make sure that your brain first understands the movement pattern that you want your body to move through to be able to do this skill. So you want to definitely make sure that you take time to digest, understand all the information that we've talked about so that you can be confident and commit to following through when attempting your forward roll. Because when you know what you want to do, you've communicated that to your body because you've improved your coordination levels, you're going to have so much more success the first time you go through the forward roll steps. You're like, yes, I got this because I prepared for this. I've studied for this just like you would study for a test in school. But if you skip the steps, you don't really turn your focus notch up. You're not really thinking about what you're supposed to be doing. A lot of new athletes will freak out mid-skill and then end up just stopping because they don't really know what they want their body to do, and so they just throw themselves into it, and then the body goes into survival mode and it just cuts you off. You just freeze up mid-air, and that's when injuries happen. That's when you put yourself at a higher risk for injury because you haven't taken the time to prepare your body to do this movement that you're asking it to do, okay? So, important takeaway number 1 is make sure you really take in, digest, understand all the information we've talked about so you can be confident and commit to following through with your roll. Point number 2, forget your ego and start simple, okay? So a lot of people who are maybe you've done gymnastics within other areas of sport or fitness before, and you're like, no, I'm past the wedge progression. I'm past this basic step-by-step roll, and you immediately try a fast roll or a handstand forward roll. Guess what? It's probably not gonna go well because just like in school, if you skip a week or a month's worth of lesson planning, you're not gonna know that information, so you're gonna go to take the test and you're just gonna be winging it, okay? We don't want to wing things in gymnastics. You have to properly prepare. And this means throwing your ego out the window as you're learning, because this sport is dangerous. There is a risk for injury, and we're trying to minimize that risk for you as much as possible, okay? So this isn't me just trying to like shut down your gymnastics dreams, make it super boring. This is me looking out for you and your well-being, trying to keep you safe as possible so that you do have the most long-term success as possible. So throw your ego out the window, even if you've rolled before, and go through all of the step-by-step processes that we've talked about in today's class. All right, point number 3 is mindfulness. So visualize and understand each step versus rushing to roll. This kind of really beautifully folds into that second point we just talked about. You want to make sure your brain is turned on when you practice these gymnastic skills, that you're being very mindful and intentional with your movement. You're talking to yourself. You're saying, hands on the floor, bring my feet up. Oop, where's my center of gravity? It's right over my lever point. Awesome. Gravity tipped me over. And then you're telling yourself to tuck your head in. You're telling yourself to have a lot of control, to pull your heels into your booty to stand, to sit up with your core, shoulders over your toes, and then boom, I just did it. Yes, that's awesome. You have to think about what you're doing because, again, this sport is very, very mental. The brain has to first understand before the body can be expected to do it. So we can't zone out in gymnastic skills like you can in some other areas of sport. We've got to be very intentional with how we practice and how we approach these movements. All right, last but not least, you want to make sure you're training with the proper quote-unquote equipment, okay? So again, you don't have to be in a beautiful gymnastics facility with super high quality mats to be able to learn to forward roll. You can do this stuff at home. You've just got to, again, be mindful about what you're using and kind of think through before you go to practice something. So using your mattress, let's say you're doing your first forward roll on your bed at home, big fluffy bed, okay? If you were to accidentally skip a step or miss a step and we don't walk the hips forward and you just collapse, if you collapse on a big fluffy mattress, you're probably gonna be okay. So you can use your bed, you can use couch cushions, pillows, stack up some comforters again, make a really soft, squishy surface that's gonna keep you safe, and then you can start to take off a comforter or take off a pillow as you feel comfortable and can do each of the progressions safely and correctly. Okay, so don't get caught up in needing a gymnastics gym to practice something like rolling. You can do it from home. You just have to, again, think about what you're using, tell yourself why you're using it so that you know you're going to keep yourself safe and can have a lot more confidence going into each attempt that you do. You did it. You made it through all 5 parts of our forward roll class. Congratulations. Now, just a quick recap of what we talked about. We first discussed why you are learning the forward roll. Okay, it's that foundational skill that's going to set you up so strongly for your journey in gymnastics. We discussed the mechanics behind the movement pattern, the step-by-step process you want to move through to be able to roll smoothly and safely. Then you got to look at my beautiful drawings as we talked about gravity, weight distribution, and how the heck your center of gravity and your lever point play a part in being able to roll successfully. Then you got 6 different progressions you can use at a gym or at home and some very important takeaways that you want to be aware of as you start to practice. I'm very proud you made it through the whole class. And I definitely want to hear how your training goes. So if you use any of this information, share it with your friends or just practice any of the drills the next time you're going to class or you head into your living room to set up your pillows. Let me know how it goes. Let me know what worked for you. Let me know what you struggled with so that I can help best give you drills and more information so that you can continue to progress through your gymnastics journey. It's super fun, super worth it to build that foundation and then work your way up into these higher level skills. So good luck training in the future, and thanks for following along.